Hello and welcome back to Genesis Designs and Modelcraft, and welcome to the 48 in 48 challenge. And this is where I am going to attempt to build a 48th scale model kit, this one, in, well, less than 48 hours. So I've missed a trick. I've missed the start actually. I assumed the start would be at midnight last night, i.e. Friday. It is now Saturday morning. But in fact it started, I believe, at 8 PM last night, so I could have been working on this kit last night, but in truth I never planned to start on Friday evening. So here I am Saturday morning. It is right now 8:41 in the morning. I've just wasted a good half an hour trying to figure out how to do streaming, and quickly remembered within that half an hour why I hadn't been doing any streaming since the last few times I tried it. Principally, getting software to work never seems to be as easy as it should be, but the biggest one, I managed to find one that was working and transmitting, and indeed some of you may have been unlucky enough to see it before I deleted it, but it's upside down. My video camera is on an arm above my bench which sticks out so it can film down onto here, but it's the wrong way up, so the natural footage is upside down. And then when I edit the video I can flip the whole thing the right way up so that you see it as it should be. And I think that was one of the principal reasons I stopped trying to stream in the first place, because I cannot mount the camera so that it streams the right way up naturally, and I'm not tech savvy enough to figure out how to flip the image during the stream. It's unfortunate because in some ways if you can get it set up and working it's easier to stream than to do pre-recorded videos. So I will work on that. The other downer is streaming the software. It's really expensive. There are free versions but they're very limited, and if you want to upgrade to the paid version so that you can stream in a paltry 1080p where all these videos are 4K, it's 30-40 quid a month. So I'm not even close to going to be able to recoup that. So anyway, I will edit. I'll film short snippets, maybe some time lapse if I can figure that out, and I will edit it all together later on tonight and smash it on this evening. So a lot more work for me, and it's behind the times for you. Sorry about that, but that's just the way it's going to be, because I never prepare for anything. I have coffee, so there's that. I am also going to post updates to Facebook, my Facebook page, not necessarily hourly but very regularly. So if you see this late this evening and want to follow the progress a bit more closely tomorrow, or indeed if you're already a Facebook follower you'll have seen it. But anyway, stop waffling. So the build then, 48 in 48, it's in aid of raising money for Models for Heroes. So it's a very worthy cause. Models for Heroes is a charity that help servicemen and women and blue light worker men and women who may or may not have issues with their health, their mental health, whatever, but Models for Heroes will supply them with kits and with accessories and things to build the kits, and indeed live streams and face-to-face meetups where these people can get together, spend time with other like-minded folk, and it's generally very wholesome and healing, and I fully support the cause. So this whole thing, I will put the website and donation links in the description below. Have a quick look if you want to see what it's all about, and consider a donation, large or small. You know, if I generally get a couple of thousand views on a video, if everyone donated one English pound, you know, that's a solid amount of money to go towards the cause. So that wire's in the way. Enough about all that. This is the kit I'm going to build, the Airfix de Havilland Vampire FB5/9. I have not even opened the bags yet. The version I plan to do is Sacrilege Awaits, the French one, mainly because it's just one colour and does not feature all that many decals, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to somehow miraculously build this thing in the time allowed. Now, I have in the past done so-called blitz builds in just 24 hours, so I know previously, there we go, this little beauty, I have in fact finished models and more complex ones than this, frankly, in 24 hours. So I should be able to do this. But in reality, my ability to get things finished very swiftly has declined in recent years. I don't know if it's through lack of practice or simply being a doddery old git, but it has nonetheless declined. So I'll get started, I'll chat a bit, and I will switch the video off fairly quickly so I can just get on. Another bonus with live streaming, I could just be getting on and not have to worry about any of this. Let's take a photo for Facebook. See, this is what it's really like. It's not all glamour. A lot of work goes into this stuff. Photograph. Bosh. Stick that up on Facebook shortly. So here we go then. 8:46. Let's get cracking. And this is the model. Should be pretty doable, I reckon. So how do you go about building a kit like this as fast as that? Well, not by following the instructions is one answer. Straight away I'm going to cut all of the major parts out. And I've not done myself any favours by not looking at this ahead of time, frankly, but you figure out sub-assemblies, what you can get built, and you get stuff glued together straight away. So the things are drying, getting set up, whilst you're fiddling about with detailed stuff. So actually, you know, potentially you will spend more time figuring things out and planning initially than perhaps you would on a normal build, but you'll save that time later. You'll get it all back later in spades because you're kind of ahead of the drag curve, if that makes sense. Also get rid of lots of big chunks of sprue frames out of the box, and it just makes everything look simpler and more achievable. And let's be honest, the mental aspect of something like this is a factor. So I plan, as I say, it's just before 9 AM right now. I plan to work on this all day. I want to get this video up and on YouTube this evening. So, you know, I have to allow an hour or so, and that's 2 frames on the floor already. An hour or so for editing, and probably 3 hours or so for it to buffer, to render the video, and then another hour-ish to get it actually up on YouTube, which gives me a stop time if I'm going to say about 6 PM. But I think that's reasonable to work on something like this from 9 till 6 is plenty long enough, I think. I think that's most of the big obvious stuff snipped off, and you know, I'm going to go straight in and just start cleaning these parts up. Just big chunks of time, just get them right out the way at the beginning. I will be using super glue throughout for speed. Not only is it faster than conventional plastic cement, it also will not leave me with a model which in 3 months' time will be covered in ghost seams and sunken bits where the glue continues to react with the plastic. And as I say, I will record more throughout the day and put it all together. I'll try not to make it too long. And yeah, I apologise for the lack of live stream. It's totally my fault. Prior preparation prevents poor performance, as we used to say in the Royal Air Force. The 5 Ps. And I've thought about it multiple times this week. Oh, I need to sit down and figure that out, and I didn't, and here we are. Oh well. If I get time at some point later, I might look at it again. It is something I would like to do now and again, maybe on a weekend, every now and again just have a live stream just to, you know, chat, interact a bit more directly, I suppose, with you lot. Little Q&A sessions or hint and tip sessions and stuff like that, but it's going to need me to, I think the software I found earlier would work, but I'm going to need to figure out a way of filming it that's the right way up, and as I say, the quality is not going to be as good as this, because I don't think any of the streaming platforms will support 4K actually. I think 1080 is the best you're going to get. Anyway, enough waffle for now. I'm going to crack on. I'll pop back in, let's say probably at salient points or 3 or 4 times, or as I go along I'll pop back, show you the progress, all in the hope of getting something edited together for you to watch this evening with a nice glass of rum preferably. I'll speak to you anon. Okay, first hour check-in. I've been at this for 1 hour, and progress is I've got these internal parts attached, so a kind of a spar piece which forms part of the wheel well, with additional panels to finish the wheel wells, and of course this little intake assembly. I have not bothered to try and smooth any seams here or even paint the inside, because even now it's realistically impossible. There is a sort of a fan assembly rendition in there, not that there really should be, but you can't really see down there, and one of the ideas behind doing the fully silver aircraft is I don't need to worry about it. I can shoot what silver gets in there. It's meant to be silver in there anyway, so no masking, no messing. So that's all done. Flash Gordon has been attached at the back here, and I've just put together the exhaust pipe, which I have used super glue to stick this together, because about that much of it sticks out the back of the model, so that will need the seam will need correcting, and it's not the prettiest, so all of that needs a little bit of titivation. So super glue, so no waiting. Tailplane is glued together, and I've snipped off some more parts, that being the drop tanks. I decided to do drop tanks, drilled out the holes, and then instantly regretted it because each drop tank is in 3 pieces. Urgh! Oh well. So yes, I'm going to address the seam on the exhaust pipe now, and then I can fit this assembly into the back of this lower sort of fuselage and wing part. So not going too bad. Top tip for the first hour, if you're ever doing anything like this, is it's really hard, I think, to realise when you've been at it for an hour and this is all you have to show to it. It can get a little bit panicky, but don't panic, because this is the hard yards, this is the bit that takes a lot of time. So keep calm, put something good on YouTube, and just keep on whittling away at it. So there we go, first hour check-in. Okay folks, here we are with hour 2. It is now 10:49, so 2 hours after I started. I have finished putting the inside stuff in, so I decided, because it seemed like the right thing to do at the time, I've built the cockpit parts in situ, as you can see. It's really good access because of the way the breakdown is. There's super good access for painting it, and actually this is all really tight. Putting it in here, all the sort of interlocking tabs on the parts are really tight, so painting it first and then fitting it would have been probably quite troublesome, to be honest. So I'm kind of glad I did it this way. This is the entirety of the cockpit assembly, and I've chosen the seat with the, I mean, they're super basic, but they're moulded in straps. I have not fitted the sort of side parts of the instrument panel. They snap in quite firmly, but there will be a decal on the sheet for them, so I've left them unfitted, and likewise the actual central instrument panel isn't yet fitted, just to enable the decal to go on much more easily. And in the same vein, here's the upper sort of section. I've fitted the little detail parts into that. The instrument panel centre is meant to fit, will be fitted up here, and I'll fit that once it's all deckled up. So the next port of call, I'll just pop this together. You can see how it all sits in there. There we go, very, very deep, dark cockpit. It's all going to be black. It is all black, so it seems absolutely superfluous to spend a lot of time and effort with it at all, honestly. So there you go, that is how it all looks together. You can see that goes together without any issue over those parts, so it's all good. So next job is I am just about to carry out spraying all of this area and all of this area and these parts here with some black, and I'm going to use Tamiya's LP5 for that. Back with the hour 3 update, and I guess it probably doesn't look a lot different, but I have been beavering away. So first things first, the fit of these main parts here. I discovered through, I was just messing around, this side fitted really well, but this side had a huge gap, and I pressed it and I pressed it and it wouldn't go down. So I began just trimming this area here, and it wasn't really working. I seemed to be getting it closer, but there was just something really wasn't happy in there. And I had a brainwave, and I looked underneath and discovered that the 3 massive wires that were moulded onto this detail part in the top half here. I don't know if that is even going to focus, but you see there's a kind of flat shiny area on the bottom of those wires, and that is allied to, you can see a little spot of shininess, and again I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get it to be visible. There you go, you see this shiny spot here, and that is where these moulded wires were pressing onto the cockpit floor. So I just snipped them off completely, because honestly it's a black cockpit, it's very deep, they were underneath other detail, not going to be visible unless you paint them bright yellow or something, which I was never going to do. Now that fits together just fine. It looks like it doesn't because of the black paint, but I'll clean that off before I glue it. So that was that. I have glued together the tail booms, both of them. I found that the alignment pins wanted to misalign the parts a little bit. On one of them, I think this one, I snipped the pins off altogether. On this one I just held it. They wanted to induce a vertical misalignment of these parts, but got around that. Super glue used on these, and I have actually made a start on rubbing these joints down. I've also joined together the top parts of the 2 drop tanks, again with super glue. Those are drying, and what I've just finished doing is putting the decals onto these instrument panel parts. They're very bright white, very overstated honestly, but in such a dark cockpit I'm going to take it. Now I've used the Ammo of MIG Decal Fix number 2 to soften these decals to get them to go down. I find Decal Fix 2, the ammo stuff, to be very, very good for this kind of thing, and the Airfix decals react to it brilliantly. As you can see, they have snugged down onto those panels absolutely brilliantly. They're still very wet. I literally did this 5 minutes ago. So the next step for me is lunch. I'm going to stop. It is now 12 o'clock. I'm going to stop, refill the coffee mug, have something to eat and have a bit of a break, and let these decals just dry down a touch. So when I come back, I'm going to flat coat these parts, give that a few minutes to dry, and then pop some gloss onto the dials just to, you know, give it a bit more interest. And once that's done, a bit of a dry brush, paint these belts up, and I can get these main parts put together. So I will probably miss the hour 4 update because it won't be a full hour, so I'll come back to you at hour 5, which will be 2 o'clock. Okay, post lunch update. It's closing in on 2 o'clock, so I think that puts us at hour 5. I'll say now, I will get mixed up on the hours as I go into it, so if I say the wrong hour at any point, just ignore me. But yeah, it's 20 to 2. And here's what I've done since lunch. So in the cockpit I have painted the seat belts, very, very basic, literally just a quick coat of a sand colour on those, and I've added those side portions of the instrument panels. There's a very slight dry brush in there. I've massively overdone it on the fire extinguisher there, but yeah, a little bit of a dry brush. And as I said, just put a flat coat on those instrument panel portions and then glossed up the dials. Same here for the main instrument panel, which is going to remain stubbornly invisible, but it looks okay. I do think that a well applied instrument panel decal can look quite effective. Is that any good? Not really, but you get the idea. So at that point the big pieces are ready to go together. Both booms have been sanded, the seams are no more, and those are all done. And that is the beauty of super glue. This drop tank is now completely assembled. Obviously it does need to have the seams done. This one is not yet assembled, but now I am ready to put these main parts together. It is a little tiny bit fiddly just to hook it all together, but here we go. That is the lesser known Vampire X-Wing, but yeah, these will squeeze together fine. So again, I'm going to use super glue just to allow me to fill the seams immediately, basically, rather than having to wait for anything to dry. And of course saves me worrying about ghost seams and things. So okay, yeah, everything's fitting nicely. So the way to go about it then on something like this is I do have an old it's an old plastic blister pack at the side here, and I just squeeze out a puddle of super glue, and I'm just using some cheap nonsense that I got off I either got it off Amazon or from eBay, I don't recall which, honestly. And then using a cocktail stick, pick up some super glue, and I just apply it quite liberally, honestly. I mean, it doesn't want to be pouring down the sides of the model or anything, but you want a good bead, and just pop that on. I'm only going to put it on these two front sections initially. It's important to do this a bit at a time. If you try to put the glue across the entire thing, it's just going to go off before you can get things together. It doesn't work. So now carefully introduce these parts back together, and I'm all fingers and thumbs and can't make anything happen right now. To kind of slot it in, because the rear part of the cockpit angles back, so there we go. And then pop it down, squeeze it together and hold it. And whilst doing so, just try and check for the alignment of the seam, in the sense of whether it's flush with itself or not just the gap. And that's it, just hold it together until the glue sets up enough to hold itself, which should only take, you know, seconds really, but at most probably a minute. And then just to speed things up yet more, grab the accelerator and get that in there. Once you put the accelerator on, you do still need to hold on to it for a few seconds. It doesn't set absolutely instantaneously, so be careful of that. And there we go, glued together. So, looking more closely at the seam, you can see that there's a big old bead of glue that is squeezed out from that joint, and the idea here, it's much like back in the day when models in the magazines used to talk about tube glue or liquid cement and squeezing a bead of glue and plastic out from the seam to give you something to sand. And the idea is with this, that when I sand back that excess adhesive, I won't then need to go back into the joint with any filler. That will act as the filler and adhesive all in one go. And if you get it right, and if the kit fits reasonably well, I'd say probably 7 times out of 10 that is the case. You can see here there's a bit of a good old Airfix texture there. That's obviously got to go as well because this is going to be silver. Got the same thing both sides, and I will deepen this panel detail before I start sanding this big hatch here. So there we go, that's hour 5, 10 to 2. I'll be back later on to show where I've got to. Alright, 3 o'clock, I guess that's 6 hours, or is it 7? I don't even know. 6 update. So, 1 wing done, 1 boom in. It's important actually if you build this kit to, it's tempting to deviate from the instructions where they tell you to fit the booms to the lower wing before you fit the upper bit. I chose not to allow better access for this area here because the seams here they're not perfect, they need a bit of work, and these aren't perfect. And that's a good point actually, because with a build like this, with speed being the primary concern, there will always be areas where there's a compromise between quality and speed, and this is one of them, because really this needed a little bit of filling. There's some extra lines there which I think are not supposed to be there where the parts are joined together, but instead of filling it, all I've done is trimmed it smooth and just left it. I have filled the 2 joins next to the exhaust here. Just bring that up, see what I'm on about. I think the seam that's not supposed to be there is probably this one here. But anyway, a concession to speed. So yeah, I left them off to enable access here. That's fine because at the minute this wing isn't fixed together, so I'm able to open it up enough to push the boom in. So don't forget to do that, because once this wing is fixed, that boom isn't going to go in without modification because the piece inside here is tapered. Great idea, but it's a bit unnecessary truthfully. Could have got away with not being tapered, but I suppose the idea is when these are tightly held, it sets. You can see they're sitting, those booms are sitting very parallel without any input from me at all. And the joins between the booms and the wings themselves I will probably give a very good ignoring as well as another concession to speed. So yes, I am getting there. It is now 3 o'clock and I don't normally glue wings with super glue. Super glue is not very good in shear strength, so it's the kind of thing where the flexing that can happen with a wing when you hold it can make it split. This is a small model and again speed is required, so I have used super glue there, and I will here. But yeah, I am getting there. It's starting to feel somewhat possible. So you've got to get that wing glued, then there's a nose cone intake. The tail plane will stretch into position once the booms like that. And then there'll be some control surfaces and glass parts, and I'll be somewhere near painting, so it's going pretty well I think. Welcome back. I'm a little bit late, you don't know obviously, but it's 4:30, so it's update 7, hour 8, update 7. I do have more or less a complete airframe here. I have got both wings done, I've got both booms glued in, I've adjusted the joints here at the back of the wing where the booms go in, leading edges are done, and the nose cone is on. There is weight in there, a little bit of aquarium lead substitute strip stuff and some plasticine, and then I've had to fill all the way around this nose cone. It was okay, it wasn't terrible, but especially with having to work so fast, I couldn't get it nice enough, so I plonked it on. and that has been filled and sanded all the way around. It's very, very hard to see the filler because it's CA and talc filler. It's extremely difficult to pick it out, but the fact that this scribing stands out white the way it does, even though extra thin is in it, shows you that that's actually on top of CA and talc. Same here, these little areas here had big gaps, CA and talc in there, smoothed off. This has just been, I sprung the booms out, sandwiched that in, there's a little bit of extra thin in there holding that in, and I'm going to use the Vallejo wipe off acrylic putty in these joints. But before I do that, I'm just going to add the smaller parts, so we've got intakes and control surfaces to go on, hopefully without any real trouble, and then I can settle in on the transparencies, and once those are on, we can start getting some paint on it, which is what I need. I need this to have paint on it before I can stop today. So I'm coming to the end of page 8, step 37 of the instructions, so we're going pretty much at a great pace, I think. I'm keeping the updates short because I want to keep the length of the finished video manageable, so I won't say any more. But yeah, I'll be back in another hour or so. Okay, this is the hour 8 update, so I'm actually 9 hours in. It's 6 o'clock now, it's 1800 hours. And as you can probably tell, I'm pretty much there. I have to fit the windscreen properly. I'll temporarily attach the canopy itself with some white glue. Obviously I'll mask them both, but I'm basically pretty much there. There's a couple of things I just need to tweak before I can look at putting some paint on. One of them is a modification that I couldn't help doing for myself, and the other is a bit of a mysterious one from Airfix. So the model has these very short wingtips on it. The kit has got two wingtip versions in. There's a sort of a rounded one, which I guess is probably the standard one, and these very, very short clipped wingtips. So I've fitted them in accordance with the instructions, frankly. And when I've come to fit the wingtip lamps, or to look at them anyway, I immediately thought they look massive. They're just so big in every single direction. Test fitted one, or just held it up against the model while still attached to the frame, and it is indeed ridiculously big. And to compound the issue, the kit part has a little recess in the back of it to enable the modeller to put some coloured paint in there to represent a bulb, and I really don't think that's going to be very obvious, but there's the part in question. See the little recess? You put your paint in there and hey presto, a coloured bulb. Obviously you're now thinking, why is that there? And basically these pieces were so long, but also because of that recess, I thought I'll just glue them on and sand them back, but with that recess there, the recess itself was deeper than this wingtip is. So what I've done is I've used the trusty DSP IAE nippers from the departure set to trim the inboard part of the navigation light away in one hefty snip, and then I have attached the rest of the lamp to the wingtip thus with some super glue, and I'm letting that thoroughly set because in my experience Airfix transparencies do have a tendency to react a little oddly with super glue. They go a bit soft, so that needs time at this point to set up properly. The other thing is there's a notch moulded in the front of this fin to fit the pitot later, and I've decided to fill that with super glue, and I will drill it and do a little brass tube pitot later. So I just need to sand that back to shape and stick a little drill in the front of it as a starter. So basically that is the 6 PM update. I am now going to go back downstairs and find something to eat, have a little bit of tea, and probably a cup of tea, and then I will come back, mask these transparencies, knock these little sanding jobs out, and hopefully get some paint on it. 7 o'clock update, 7 PM. I have had some tea, and then I came back up here and I have smoothed in my little mod here, blended in the wingtips and fitted the canopy. Thankfully the canopy does fit nicely. I masked it with bare metal foil as I usually do, and I've just sprayed all of the framing areas with LP5 Tamiya, which is lacquer paint satin black, and that is this thing actually ready to put some paint on. I am going to paint straight over the nav lights. They're not as clear as they could be. Being honest, I can't really be bothered to try and mask them, so I'm just going to paint straight over them and worry about that later. Although now I'm saying it with my voice, I'm feeling guilty, and I'll probably end up messing around masking it, even though I've just said I won't. Anyway, I'm just about to put some paint on. This thing is silver overall. It is not natural metal. These aircraft were actually made in a large part out of wood. Here it is, French. Obviously Humbrol 11 is quoted, but high speed silver is the colour, and I am going to utilise my aluminium lacquer for it, which started life as some aluminium coloured AK extreme metal, and it has had some pale grey added, which just dulls off the sparkle a little bit, and it will make the model look more like something that is painted silver as opposed to something that's trying to look like natural metal. So that's the idea. So I'm going to jump off and get on with it because I'm conscious of the time and I still need to edit all of these little bits together, and I'll come back to you when the paint is on. And hello again. So now the time is just gone 20 to 8 in the evening, so I am just a little under 12 hours from when I started this morning. I started at 20 to 9, so I'm about 11 hours from where I started this morning, and I think in total I've probably had about an hour away from this chair in that time. So here we are with a painted and glossed model. As I said, I used my silver lacquer mix, which is just some silver aluminium style paint with a little bit of pale grey in it. You can make this up with any metallic type of paint. You can add a bit of light grey, bit of dark grey, black, white, anything like that. Greys, whites, black, and they'll just dull off that kind of vibrance of the finish, which I don't want in this case because this was a painted aeroplane. This is the finish. I have stuck an X-Lite up its jet pipe to hold it with because it's all one colour, so you know you need to. Yeah, this is the finish. So as a couple of coats of silver, then I gave it a little nib with good old Trizac just to any little areas where the finish looked a bit weird, because as you saw there was no primer on this. No primer was harmed during the course of this model. It's straight onto the bare plastic, so if there are any areas where the sanding marks are a bit too obvious or just the directions of them made them stand out, just a little bit of Trizac, rub it all back with some water, just a touch, nothing major, smooth it all out, another couple of coats of silver, and then I have put a couple of decent coats of X22, which is thinned with Mr. Colour Thinner, normal, not self-levelling. Still quite starting to get somewhere near dry now, but this needs time. At the point I'm at now, this model needs time. This paint needs to cure through before I start mucking about throwing decal solutions anywhere near it. I want it nice and dry, nice and smooth, but pretty happy with what I've managed to achieve with this today. All in all, and tomorrow I'll come back and carry on and hopefully see it through to the finish before 8 PM. So with all of that said, I want to thank you all very, very much for watching. Hopefully some of you may have seen some of my Facebook and Instagram updates through the day. Quite sure I've lost track of the hours at some point because I'm sure I was only on hour 9, but I've been at the bench for 11 hours, so I've messed it up. I knew I would, but I haven't messed the model up, and that's the important part. Please do consider dropping a donation in for Models for Heroes in view of this challenge that I've been doing. I'll put the link, the donation link and the website link in the description below. I'd really appreciate it if you could do that. But obviously there's no pressure, we're also raising awareness here. So on that note, if there are any service folk or blue light workers that would like to get involved with Models for Heroes, they'd like to become a beneficiary or would like to volunteer to help out, then please also look up Models for Heroes and get in touch with the guys there. They do a fantastic job and they help so many people. Alright, sermon over. I'm going to put this up to dry, I'm going to go get cleaned up, and then I'm going to edit this footage into one hopefully not ridiculously long video, get it rendered and get it up onto YouTube tonight. I won't edit it too much, so all the bloopers and pauses will remain extant. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll be back tomorrow for some more vampire modelling fun. With all of that said, I think it only remains for me to say, until tomorrow, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.